So if you're in the market for the cheapest M series iPad possible, you're going to find the M1 iPad Air, which has dropped to $350 on the refurbished and used market. And so is it still worth buying? Well, spoiler alert, yes it is. Beginning with the design, there's really nothing special here, but it's a practical design that works. The flat edges are easy to grip onto and of course helps accommodate the Apple Pencil, and it would be nice if bezels were thinner, but ultimately they serve a purpose. You can still place your finger somewhere when holding the iPad. I would say the colors with the M1 iPad Air are better than the current M3 iPad Air though, because just look at how vibrant this blue is compared to the barely blue of the M3 Air. Anyway, the display also similarly has no fancy features, but it does the job, guys. It's 10.9 inches LCD, has a resolution of 2360 by 1640 with 500 nits of brightness. It's also laminated with P3 supports, true tone, and has an anti-reflective coating. Yes, it does miss out on 120Hz, which the techies won't be happy about, but I'll be honest, iPadOS is fluid enough where I rarely notice a lack of this. Brightness is also completely fine for indoor usage, and the Apple Pencil experience is unaffected by the lack of 120Hz. It's a laminated panel, of course, so it's still much better to jot things down on this compared to the base iPads. And that does bring me to accessories. This does support the very awesome Magic Keyboard, and I think it's a must-have for anyone wanting the iPad to be a laptop replacement. Now, the Magic Keyboard that just launched with the M3 iPad Air is compatible with the M1 as well, but I wouldn't get that because that retails for $269, and you can find the last gen Magic Keyboard for much less on the used and refurbished market, and that does actually have backlight keys unlike the current version offered on the Air. Yes, Apple's keyboard situation is very messy, but a previous generation Magic Keyboard is an incredible accessory for your iPad. You know what else would be incredible? If you click that subscribe button, of course. It's free and would bring you the latest about Apple right to the subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Join the saranbyte gang now. Anyway, you also have the Apple Pencil, which is something only the iPad offers in Apple's range. This is quite useful for artwork and of course note-taking. And whilst this iPad Air does not support the new Apple Pencil Pro, the older second gen does the job, and similar to the keyboards, this has become a lot cheaper over the years, and so you can probably get the iPad, the pencil, and the keyboards for around $500, which is not too shabby. By the way, I would get the second gen pencil over the USB-C pencil this Air also supports, since the USB-C model lacks wireless charging and pressure sensitivity. Now, coming to the best part about this iPad, let's talk about the chipset. So as I said, this is the cheapest way to get access to the M series chipset on the iPad. Yes, it's not M3 or M4, but M1 is still plenty powerful enough despite it originally launching all the way back in 2020. And as someone still using an M1 MacBook Air, I can tell you Final Cut runs flawlessly for my edits, and so this iPad should be great for most creatives as well, and the apps they use. Also, fun fact, unlike most base M1 MacBook Airs, this does have the full-fat 8-core GPU as standards, so you won't have any performance issues. However, I will be honest, if you aren't going to utilize the additional performance and RAM this M series iPad offers, the overall experience won't be very different from a non-M series iPad like the A16 iPad. Though of course, with there being so much headroom here, you should be sorted when it comes to software support. Of course, I can't know for sure how long Apple's going to support this, but considering how good M1 still is, I could see both M1 iPads and Macs getting another 4 or 5 years of updates. And since this does have an M series chipset, it's likely going to continue getting all iPadOS features, since remember right now, non-M series iPads do miss out on a few things like Stage Manager and Apple Intelligence. I know right now Apple Intelligence doesn't really offer anything useful, but eventually when Apple does roll out next generation Siri, it is nice this M1 Air is going to get access to that from day one. Battery life is also solid, however I will say it's worse in my experience compared to other iPads, specifically the regular models. I'm not exactly sure why, maybe it's the M1 using a little more power, but for most people's needs, this iPad should still be fine endurance wise. Though do note, this only is the case when the battery inside is brand new, which would be the case when buying from Apple Refurbished, for example. But if you go for a third-party refurbished program or a used iPad Air, then battery life and battery health is going to vary. Unfortunately, unlike the iPhone, old iPads don't have a battery health page, and so you're going to have to plug this into Coconut Battery to see the battery stats. But even with an older battery inside, the Air should be decent enough. Now, another plus with this iPad Air is the USB-C port. Whilst it does not offer Thunderbolt speeds, it is still 2 times faster than the iPad Air 4, with data transfers up to 10 gigabits per second, so transfer speed should be completely fine, and it does also support displays up to 6K resolution, and if you do plan to use an external display on a regular basis, do remember that Stage Manager is going to enhance the experience, which this M1 iPad Air offers, but similarly priced iPads like the A16 base model lacks. Quickly touching touching on the cameras, Apple recommends you to add footage you record on your iPads to your Final Cut timeline, but please do not do this. Whilst it's not the worst sense in the world, the rear camera should really only be used in a pinch for things like scanning documents. However, fun fact, this is the same rear camera we have on the M3 iPad Air. The front-facing camera, however, is fantastic for video calls since it does feature center stage, so it follows you around the room as you move. However, do note it is in a portrait orientation. The newer M2 and M3 iPad Airs have the camera in a landscape orientation, which does make those iPads slightly better for video calls, but it's not a huge con with the M1. Speakers and mic-wise, the M1 is also pretty solid. It's not quad speakers like the iPad Pro, but it surprisingly gets close with 2 less speakers, and because it's a stereo pair, it's great for watching movies with. Mics have also never disappointed me for calls, and Touch ID is reliable. Right, so for those wondering what to expect from iOS 17, we have a bunch of new information, so let's delve into it. So most of these findings are from the Leaker 941 analyst, who was the first to tell us about the dynamic island. Connectivity-wise, we have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5 supports, which aren't the newest standards, but I've had zero issues in this department. Now, I do want to finally mention the only problem the M1 iPad Air has, which is 64 gigs of storage on the base model. Now, to be fair, if your usage is really basic and you rely on cloud storage, it's quite easy to live with 64 gigs, but it's kind of annoying you have the power of the M1 here, and this could be a serious laptop replacement, and yet the storage stops you from doing this. There is the 256 gig model, but that's usually a lot more expensive from third parties, and so really the only solution you have is relying on external storage. Thankfully, external storage is pretty cheap, so as long as you're willing to rely on SSDs for your creative workflow, you can make do with the base M1 iPad Air. And that's basically everything regarding this iPad. As I said earlier, this makes the most sense for creatives and those wanting to begin to use pro applications on their iPads. I know Apple now lets you run Final Cut on the A16 based iPads, but the M1 iPad Air will give you the better overall experience with the M1 and 8 gigs of RAM. And if you're an artist, do remember more RAM allows for more layers in Procreate, and so ultimately, as long as you know for sure the iPad has the right apps and features you need, this is a nice starter machine to begin doing creative work with, especially for around $350. But if you don't necessarily need the advantages the M series iPad offers, do remember the A16 iPad is available for around the same price and does offer double the base storage and a landscape front-facing camera. However, even if you're not going to be maxing out the M series chipset, the Air does have the better display and also better accessories. So yes, I'll leave links below to both iPads. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.